everyone. It's Friday, and so that means 5-Question Friday. My name is Cam, your sometimes 5-Question Friday host, and I'm coming to you live from a friend's backyard, which I'm in front of like a chempres, I don't know, a hedge, I guess. I don't know how to say it in English anymore, behind me, and there's roses here, and it smells so good. And it's a beautiful day today, and my kids are getting off school early, so I didn't want to venture too far from home. So she was kind enough to invite me to film in her backyard because the kids are coming while I'm filming 5-Question Friday, and that would just be chaos if they showed up in the middle of it. So I'm here chilling in her beautiful backyard, smelling her gorgeous roses that are just to the right of me. I hope you're doing well on this Friday and that the weather is just as glorious where you are. I spent the week cleaning our pool. There was zero luxurious things happening in Croatia for me this week. Our pool was a disaster. We emptied it, and then it's one of those like collapsible pools, and so it was up. We didn't collapse it, and we didn't cover it, and so there was a price to pay for that, and it was 3 days worth of cleaning with a pressure washer and with soap and with a pump. And so thankfully I filled it today, and then I went to go attach like the thing that circulates, like the pump that circulates the water. And then like the actual like pipe thing broke. So the neighbor whose house I'm at, her husband, he's at my house right now, fixing my pump so that the pump for our pool works. So there's a lot going on in this little village o' mine this week that has a lot to do with kind of amping up for summer. I hope you guys are amping up for summer and patio season. It's been just finally beautiful here because we had a lot of rain in April, and I was like, that's okay, because like April showers bring May flowers, but really then all that May brought was more rain. So it was chilly and awful here in continental Croatia for most of May, but now it's like we made it past that, and we're getting ready for summer. Or summer is here. I don't know. Look at it however you want. But yeah, so welcome to 5-Question Friday, where we answer 5 questions that you submit to us through our various channels. Sometimes they come into us from here on Instagram or YouTube, Facebook. We've got a 5-Question Friday forum on our website. Sometimes they come in through LinkedIn or Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it these days. And sometimes they come up from our consulting calls that Sarah or I have. So, we've collected 5 good ones for you today, and I'm excited to get into it and answer them, and let's get started. Our first question, comes to us from Jane through our 5-Question Friday forum, and she asks, I'm applying for residency based on descent. Is it true that once this is completed, I will automatically be able to apply for citizenship? Thanks for the question, Jane. First of all, nothing is automatic when it comes to Croatian bureaucracy at all. So there is no automatic anything. But yes, this is true. I want to back it up a bit and talk about this residence permit that she's referring to. And up until this point, it was residence based on humanitarian reasons. But in March of 2025, the Ministry of Demography and Immigration sort of rebranded this residence permit. It's called now u svrhu useljavanja I povratka hrvatskog iseljeništva. So for the purpose of immigration and the return of Croatian immigrants. So this temporary residence permit can apply for Croatian immigrants, their descendants, and their family members, as well as certain individuals participating in specific government programs. So this residence permit is based on the immigration and return of Croatian immigrants and can be granted for up to 2 years, and they allow for extensions for valid reasons. And one of the valid reasons is that your citizenship application is in processing. So I guess just to sort of round out this answer a little bit more, why does this kind of all matter? Well, because you have to apply for citizenship where you have legal residence. So, for example, if you live in California, you have to apply for Croatian citizenship at the LA consulate. Or if you live in Ontario, Toronto or Kitchener or wherever, your consulate is in Mississauga and you have to apply through Mississauga. But if you apply for temporary residence in Croatia and Croatia becomes where you have legal residence, then you're able to submit your citizenship application from here in Croatia. This used to be a really good option for people. Like a few years back, I'd say before my time, I remember hearing it being said that the applications got processed faster if they were submitted here. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think they're taking a long time, no matter where you submit your applications these days. And by a long time, like 1 to 3 years. I know that's a really broad number that I've given you, but that's sort of been the reality of people's experiences. So that's why, somebody might be interested. Maybe they want to come to Croatia sooner than later, or they're ready to pack up their bags and come now, but they don't have their citizenship. Well, this is a fabulous avenue, and they've really honed in on, creating or sort of molding this temporary residence permit to really be for diaspora, for, the descendants of immigrants. So that's that question. Thank you so much, Jane. Oh, I see one of my friends just logged in. Hey, or joined. I'm losing my vocabulary, guys. We know this is a real thing. We've got before I get to the next question, we've got a couple of guides that are relevant to this topic. So we've got how Croatian diaspora and descendants can apply for temporary residence in Croatia if you don't have citizenship yet. Yes, that's a mouthful for a guide title, but obviously relevant and lets you know what this guide is about. And then we've also got how to apply for Croatian citizenship based on descent. So if you are watching through Instagram, feel free to DM us and we can send you these guides. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, just scroll down because we've got all of the links in the description. All right, moving it along. Question 2 came from a consulting session of mine from Howard. And he said, our dog is trained in the United States as a service animal. Can we transfer our dog's service animal status in Croatia? Fabulous question. I had to, do a little research and had the help of a colleague, Valentina, with this one. So thank you so much, Valentina. So while there is no formal process for transferring, quote unquote, service animal status between countries, service dogs can enter Croatia as long as they have the necessary documentation. And it's the same for other dogs as well. So to bring any dog into Croatia from the United States, that dog must be vaccinated against rabies and follow a specific schedule, have a valid identification document issued by a veterinarian authorized by the competent authority, which would be an EU veterinary certificate or an EU animal health certificate in this case. And then the third thing is that they are either microchipped or visibly tattooed. So you've got to meet those things to bring a dog into Croatia. You may also, or you do also need a signed let me start that again. You need to sign a written declaration confirming that the dog is not being moved for sale or for other commercial purposes. And then additionally for service dogs, it's going to be important to have documentation to prove that the dog is trained as animal assistance. That way the dog can access public areas. The law in Croatia doesn't distinguish between dogs based on their origin or country. So as long as the owner has proper documentation to stay in Croatia, the dog can come to Croatia. I even recommend taking it a step further, and whatever that document is, whether it's a certificate or some sort of letter that service animals come with, I would even say be proactive, get it officially translated into Croatian. That way, if in real life, somebody, you do have to show someone and deal with it right away to be able to get into some place or to get something done. You've got it, and you've got it in Croatian. And so hopefully, that would solve any problems or issues that are coming up in real time. So that was a fab question. They're all fab questions. I always like the questions. So we've got some guides to go along with this theme or this topic, how to bring your pet to Croatia and care for them once they arrive. So this guide originally was sort of about importing a pet, and my colleagues Daniela and Maria really expanded on this to include sort of how to live with your pet in Croatia. When you know very well when you have a fur baby that there's a lot more to living with them than just bringing them cross country. You need to know, okay, how do I access a veterinarian? What are the pet foods, or the pet stores, where can I go for grooming, and sort of all of this is addressed in this guide. So it's really well-rounded. There's a great frequently asked questions section as well. So for those with pets who are thinking about coming here, if you've just arrived with pets, there's so much great information in that guide relevant to you and your fur baby. Thank you, Howard, for letting me share that question on our show. All right. Next question came to us from Gustavo, and I can't remember what channel it came through, but it was specifically for me. I think maybe DMs in Instagram, but I forgot to make a note about where the question came from, so apologies for that. But I love these kinds of questions. So Gustavo asked, what are some advantages for returning diaspora, like positive aspects? I have a friend who's part of the diaspora, and I would like to show him some advantages of returning, and I already told him about you guys. So, I was thinking about this question when I was writing it, and, I was like, is he asking about advantages like, are there any tax benefits or things like that? And there are, and you can read all about them. I wanted to sort of take the angle of sort of benefits and advantages on a more sort of living and everyday basis. And so I jotted down some notes to talk about that. And my biggest thing sort of when I thought about what have been the positives or advantages of moving back to Croatia from Canada was a huge one was reconnecting with my roots, with where my family is from. I literally am sitting in the village where my mother was born, where my maternal grandmother and grandfather were born, where their parents were born. My family runs deep right into these literal, the literal soil that I'm sitting on right now. And so that's been a really, really big thing. And living here has, being a part of the diaspora, I feel like, some of us who grew up in folklore and entrenched in, a church and social aspects of being Croatian, we were very tied to our cultural identity. And I feel like that's happened even more since coming here. And it's made me even more hyper aware of it and wanting to, the sense of belonging that I feel here. It's been quite pronounced, quite profound. So what I mean by that, so I made some notes. We're speaking Croatian more at home now. And that's partly because the kids are speaking Croatian at school too. It's a part of not just their home life, but it's a part of their out of home life, where in Canada, it was only a part of their home life. We're celebrating holidays in a more, I'm using the word holistic, but I feel like, I don't know, we're just digging deeper into the roots of these celebrations and really understanding where they come from, their ties to the church, Croatian culture and history. So exploring those and celebrating them in a way that perhaps we haven't ever or in a long time. Just really soaking in everyday things that make this country feel like home. It's been especially nice for the children growing up with a real understanding of where they come from, rather than just visiting and coming on vacation, every 4 or 5 years. Another advantage is life really does move at a different pace here. I know we talk about this, ad nauseum, but it's because it's true. And listen, I'm not saying that life doesn't get hectic here. I've got 2 kids. I'm driving kids around. I'm making plans. I'm busy, but not busy, so busy that I can't stop and chat with the neighbor or have impromptu coffees or have coffee. I'm still going for coffees a heck of a lot more times a week than I was in Croatia times a year, or in Canada rather. So there is still time, even though I am noticing that this sort of hustle and bustle is sort of creeping its way a little bit into Croatian culture, but not in a North American, not in as much of a North American way. It's still really important for people here to stop. And I'm in continental Croatia, and I know it's even more pronounced with the Pomalo and Polako of Dalmatia. end of the Mediterranean sort of lifestyle. So that's been a really, really huge advantage of coming here. What else did I write here? There's a stronger sense of community. People take time to chat. Family life feels more balanced. We're spending more time outdoors, spending more time enjoying all of the beauty that Croatia has to offer. I love just like driving to random towns and exploring them and learning about them. I was in Ogulin a couple weeks ago. I actually recorded 5 Question Friday from there. All of these beautiful towns and villages still do have something to offer, and it's been wonderful exploring and learning about them. The lifestyle feels healthier too. The food is fresh. A lot more walking here. I mean, I was in the Greater Toronto area. There wasn't much walking. We were driving everywhere we were going. Less caught up in the hustle and bustle of North America. On the practical side too, I will say cost of living, which I know many people could argue that, I guess, but I'm hearing from a lot of friends and family in Canada in particular that, that things are just unbearable there. Inflation came here. Like, there was a lot of change since we've moved here, and things have gotten expensive. Pays have increased, but not at the rate, that's on par. Croatia's now, it's coming out and reading that it's, Croatia, the prices here are just some of the worst in all of Europe, and the pays are some of the worst in all of Europe. So, you might be surprised to hear me say cost of living, but it still feels manageable. It can be more manageable. There are growing opportunities here, especially I think diaspora could have so much to offer here in terms of businesses and working, the tax benefits for returnees. There's something really fulfilling about being a part of Croatia's future, investing in Croatia's future, whether it's through our work. We're working, both my husband and I are working for Croatian companies, whether it's through our family or just being a part of the community here. So at the end of the day, it feels really good to be back. It was right for our family, but, you can't convince somebody else. It has to be good for them and good for their family too. So what I consider advantages might not be advantages for others. So, I'm just sharing my perspective and my story. For us, and if you ever go back and you see any other sort of episodes of 5 Question Friday where I share about our personal experience, you'll see that this move here has been very emotional and very much tied to my family and my heritage. And moving back here really does feel like we've come full circle. We're continuing sort of the story that was generations old, and have returned to, I sort of feel like, where we're supposed to be. So that's my perspective and my story. So thanks, Gustavo, for asking the question. If anybody else wants to hear more about our family and our story, I got to be interviewed for Crushing It in Croatia, and that's on our website, expatinCroatia.com. I can send you that link as well in the DMs, so don't hesitate to reach out and ask for it. All right, question 4 comes to us from Timothy, and it came through the 5 Question Friday form. And Timothy asked, is there any development on legalizing homeschool in Croatia? Currently, it's illegal, and wondering if there's any behind the scenes indicating any change. So this question comes up a lot. And as of right now, homeschooling is, yes, still not allowed. It's illegal in Croatia. The law requires children to attend school, and homeschooling is only approved in really rare cases, such as a child being seriously ill. And even then, it's more like distance learning rather than like a homeschool curriculum run by the parents. That being said, there has been some movement and murmuring lately in the background. So at the end of 2024, the Education and Teacher Training Agency, so in Croatian that's the Agencija za odgoj I obrazovanje, gave positive feedback on a detailed homeschooling proposal from a group advocating for it. So there's been research submitted, there's been a draft for legislation, and it's received some academic support. So we'll find out. Stay tuned. If anything will come of it, I'm sure we'll be on it. I talked to a lot of parents who asked this question, and so it's a really interesting sort of update. We'll see if it actually becomes a real update, and there's any future changes to legislation. So thank you, Timothy, for that question. We've got some guides. One is on the education system in Croatia, which is, if you're coming here, if you're interested, it's really good to understand. It functions significantly differently than ours in Ontario, Canada, and I'm sure, different from a lot of other, not just North American, but other places around the world systems. And then how to transfer or enroll your child to a Croatian school is a guide that we offer as well. So feel free to reach out in the DMs for that. If you're watching on YouTube, you know the drill. The links are down in the description, but you probably know that already. All right, heading to our final question today, and that comes from Dan, and his question was, can you get a U.S. prescription filled in Croatia? The short answer is no, you cannot. You'd have to go to a doctor here, potentially see a private doctor at a polyclinic. You'd likely get a white slip prescription where you'd have to pay full cash for it. If you're registered already with HZZO, with the Croatian Insurance Fund, you could potentially get it covered, but be aware, because you might have to meet certain requirements, like you might have to meet with a specialist first before gaining access to a specific medication, depends on the type of medication that you get. I wanted to touch on if you're coming here and you need to bring prescriptions with you or medications with you, keep in mind that you can only bring up to 30 days of meds with you. That is the limit from border control, and you must have your documentation with you as well as copies of the prescription. And then there are even certain medications that have a stricter rule where you can only bring 5 days worth of the meds with you. And again, you have to be in possession of your medical documentation. If you're coming here and you're sort of navigating this, I definitely recommend bringing your medical records with you. It's useful for your doctor here in Croatia to see them. It can make it, helpful for writing new prescriptions or sending you to a specialist. Be aware too that sometimes some prescriptions aren't available here. Sometimes they have alternates. Sometimes you have to search for something else. We had that experience with a particular case already. And if you're staying in Croatia for longer than 30 days, highly recommend kind of when you get here, you find a private polyclinic, and meet with the doctor so that you can get the meds that you need. So that's that. Thanks, Daniela, for putting that research together for me about the traveling in stuff for tourists. That's all I got for you today. It was short and sweet, and I'm going to enjoy the rest of this evening, get into the garden a little bit. So I hope you all have a lovely Friday and a beautiful weekend. Sarah will be back with you next week, and I'll see you in a few weeks as well. So take care. Sretan petak. Thanks, Kim. Have a great weekend. Hey, Anna. Thanks, you too. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, that's all. Ciao.